A spiritual conversation between Kapil Muni and his disciple Saanaka. The early morning mist danced softly above the river Ganga. In the quiet sanctuary of the forested Gangasagar region, Kapil Muni sat under an ancient peepal tree, his eyes half closed, resting in stillness. His disciple, Saanaka, arrived from the nearby ashram, his face clouded with a question that had begun to gnaw at his sense of self. He bowed low and sat before his teacher. Gurudev, he began, his voice hesitant but sincere, I've been contemplating your teaching that the mind is part of Prakriti, a product of nature. But when I say, I am thinking, it feels so personal, so real. Who is this I that thinks? If the mind is nature-bound, who is the thinker behind the thought? Kapil Muni opened his eyes slowly. A quiet smile played on his lips. Saanaka, your question is the beginning of true inquiry. Come, let us walk. They began walking along the river's edge, where the morning sun glinted off the water. The sage pointed to the river. Do you see this flow, ever-changing, never still? That is the mind, a current within Prakriti. It moves with memories, desires, fears. But tell me, does the river know itself is flowing? Saanaka paused. No, Gurudev. It just flows. It doesn't reflect on itself. Exactly, said the sage. Now, when you say, I am thinking, that awareness of the thought, is it a thought itself? Saanaka looked puzzled. It feels like awareness, but is it also part of the mind? Kapil Muni knelt and drew a small circle in the sand. This circle is your thought. Now step outside the circle and look at it. The one who sees the thought, is he inside or outside it? Saanaka whispered, outside, watching. Yes, said Kapil Muni. That watcher, dear child, is not of Prakriti. It is Purusha, pure awareness. The mind thinks. The Purusha knows. But in ignorance, the Purusha believes it is the mind, and so says, I am thinking. Then the mind is like a puppet, asked Saanaka. Animated by Purusha's light? Well said, nodded the sage. Prakriti dances only in the presence of Purusha, like a shadow dances only in the presence of light. But the light does not dance. It just is. But Gurudev, Saanaka asked, if thoughts arise in Prakriti, and awareness belongs to Purusha, where is the I that claims ownership of thinking? Kapil Muni stopped walking and turned to face him. That is the illusion called Ahamkara, the ego maker. It is the veil between mind and self. It says, I think, when in truth, thoughts simply arise and pass in the mind. The real I is the seer of both the thought and the ego that claims it. Saanaka's breath grew still. A sense of awe welled up in him. Then I am not the one who thinks, but the one who watches the thought arise? Yes, said the sage. Thoughts belong to Prakriti. You, as Purusha, only witness them. Just as a mirror reflects a face but does not become the face, you reflect the mind but are not the mind. They sat beside the river now, listening to the soft splash of water. Is this why the sages say that realization is not becoming anything new, but simply ceasing to identify with the unreal? Asked Saanaka. Yes, said Kapil Muni. The dream ends not when the dream is destroyed, but when the dreamer wakes. You are already free. You are only dreaming that you are bound. Saanaka closed his eyes. The chatter of thought had faded. He didn't try to think anymore. He simply watched. And in that watching, he felt the edge of something vast, silent, and unchanging. Kapil Muni placed his hand gently on his disciple's shoulder. Let thoughts arise and fall like waves. Let the river flow. Just remember, you are the sky, not the clouds. You are the witness, not the one who acts. Moral of the story: the mind is a function of Prakriti, it does not belong to the self. The sense of I am thinking arises from ego, not from the true self. Purusha, the witness, is not the thinker but the observer of thoughts. Realization comes when we stop identifying with the mind and rest in the silent witness within. Om Namah Shivaya.